Hello, ladies and bugs, botflies and grubs. Today we're going to go over a whole bunch of charm builds that are based around fantasy RPG themes. We've got your spellcaster, we've got your healer. Whatever your flavor is when playing some kind of medieval fantasy or D&D like game, we've got a build for you today. I think we're hitting all the main tropes today, but if I missed one, make sure to let me know in the comments. Instead of sleeping on it like these bugs around me, we're going to jump right in. First, we've got the wizard build. Now this is going to be based, of course, around our three main spells. So the core of this build then is going to be the Shaman Stone and Spell Twister charms. This maxes out our damage potential, both with the stronger charms from Shaman Stone and being able to use more spells with Spell Twister. Probably the best charms to go with this are Soul Catcher and Soul Eater, just to max out our charm generation. This way, when we hit something with our nail, we're getting as much soul as we possibly can, and we can focus primarily on casting spells. It's worth noting that these last two are kind of our flex slots as well, so you can switch them out for other stuff. Soul Eater's worth a lot, so we could switch that out for something like Grub Song and Grubberfly's Elegy. This is better if you're getting hit a lot for soul regeneration, since Grub Song is stronger with Grubberfly's Elegy, and then it kind of turns your basic attacks into a sort of spell as well. The important thing to know, of course, is the Grubberfly attack doesn't generate soul. You still have to hit with your actual nail to generate soul, but of course, if you don't like Grubberfly, there's always space to put on something like Dream Wielder for more soul generation. And Weaver Song can kind of fit into this build as well. Similarly, again, because combined with Grub Song, the Weavers actually generate soul. It's kind of the theme of this build here. But if you need some defense, you could forego those and put on Quick Focus if you wanted. But I don't think it's quite as thematic. If you like the Fluke Nest, you can put it on, but I don't think the change is actually very good. I think Shade Soul's main strength is that it's like a pure horizontal attack. And double hitting does a ton of damage anyway. Alternatively, if you think you're going to get hit a few times, but you're not too worried about healing, you could put on one of these Lifeblood Hearts or something like that for some extra health. For our purposes, though, we're going to take these off, and we're going to stick with Soul Eater for now. Let's test these out. The strength of spells in general is that we can not only can we hit enemies from far away, the spells do a lot more damage than our nail does. We just have to make sure that we're keeping soul up. We can one-shot annoying things like that Aspid right there. This build is great at taking out bigger enemies like this Great Hopper. You just light them up with a couple of Howling Shrieks, and he dies pretty fast. Being able to take out multiple enemies at once is really handy use of all of our spells. Not to mention enemies that are a little too far away or too high for us to normally get, and we can protect ourselves with Desolate Dive. The combination of Soul Catcher and Soul Eater means we're basically never out of soul. Now, this wizard build is specifically very good against large enemies that fly around a lot, like these guys, the Oblobbles. We can just light them up very fast. There's one down already. Get some soul back. Especially the big guys, Shade Soul's very good at double hitting, or anything that gets knocked back a lot, like Hornet or Broken Vessel as well. We just did the Trial of the Conqueror there, and it took like maybe 5 minutes to complete. Being able to spam spells is extremely powerful. And this is also very good for any sort of like flying enemies like Gorb, the Soul Master, anybody like that that's actually kind of harder to hit with the nail. So we can get the most out of our small nail hits and then pump them full of our spells. Next up, we have the Fighter archetype. This is going to be a full nail build, kind of built around strength, and we're going to basically ignore spells entirely. So the core of this build is Breakable Strength, Mark of Pride, and Quick Slash. These are the main charms we're going to be built around. The next ones I recommend are Steady Body and Nailmaster's Glory to finish it off. This should maximize our damage output with the nail. With Quick Slash and Unbreakable Strength, we're doing about as much as possible. Mark of Pride gives us good reach, and Steady Body is actually a great underrated charm that lets us like just press the attack as much as possible. And Nailmaster's Glory helps us with any enemy that Quick Slash isn't as good against, basically, since it is like one big strike instead of a bunch of smaller ones. These last two charms are kind of our flex spot, so if you wanted to take those off, if you don't like them very much, you could maybe try something like Long Nail, Or if you need more defense, another good charm in this slot would be Unbreakable Heart. Now, this is a build that kind of excels in the later game once you have all of your nail upgrades. Earlier on, often spells are a little bit stronger, but once you get those nail upgrades, you've got Unbreakable Strength and all these other charms. This can do a lot of damage, so we're going to test this out. Fortunately, this is an example of an enemy that this build isn't necessarily great against, because we can't get the most out of Quick Slash since he's flying around. We could use Nailmaster's Glory here a little bit. This is a good example where Steady Body comes in handy. We push the Broken Vessel away a lot with our nail, and this way we can just keep wailing on him as he moves back. We don't get pushed away as well. We really max out the damage we do. Like, I can just push him around the whole stage. It is heavily slept on. It also helps you not just generate soul, but also stagger enemies more quickly, since it's based on the number of hits in a certain amount of time. And again, I can just stand there once I get close to them. I want to pick out an enemy that this build is particularly good against. Like, it's not as good against flying enemies or teleporting enemies, but against a ground enemy like the Knight, like, I can just attack him basically ceaselessly. And he staggers quick. Grab some soul so I can heal. Like, I can even get in close here, hit him like 3 times, and then move on. Quick Slash is very strong. Pantheon 2 wasn't a particularly good showcase for what this build can do, but you can see pretty easily that, like, it's very strong. Your nail does a ton of damage. Quick Slash really ramps it up. Nailmaster's Glory gives you kind of that flexibility, and Steady Body is just like the cherry on top. I highly recommend this build for endgame play, especially if you don't really use spells a lot anyway. This is an excellent build and really on theme for that, like, fighter fantasy archetype. Alright, on to the healer build now. This is like a defensive build. Obviously, we don't have allies to heal in this game, so it's really about healing ourselves and outlasting enemies instead of dealing a lot of damage. Really, the only core part of this build is Quick Focus along with Spore's Room. I think Quick Focus is the best defensive boon in the game. The ability to heal so quickly makes it much easier to get in those heals when you need them, even in times where normally you wouldn't have the opportunity, especially against some of the harder bosses where you get very slim opportunities to get your heals out. The Spores Room here is like our secondary source of damage, basically, so that instead of focusing on our nail or our spells, we can kind of mix things up, and we can keep ourselves healthy while still getting some progress during a fight. My recommendation for this build is to go then over to Grub Song and Grubberfly's Elegy, which will make sure we have lots of soul whenever we do get hit to be able to heal. And then since we're going to be able to heal so easily, we also can get the best use out of Grubberfly's Elegy since we can keep our health up. And then we can finish that off either with Unbreakable Strength or Shaman Stone, depending. Like, if you're kind of more like of a Paladin build almost, you'd go with the Strength and Nail build. Whereas if you're thinking almost like a Cleric, then the Shaman Stone is great for throwing out those spells. You just have to make sure you balance your soul better, since you want to keep yourself healthy for Grubberfly as well. Alternatively, you could go like full defense and do away with these, put on something like Deep Focus along with Defender's Crest and Unbreakable Heart. Some of these charms actually play together really well. So Deep Focus actually increases the size of the Sports Room Cloud, and then Defender's Crest upticks the damage, I think from 27 up to 40 ticks. If Deep Focus is too slow for you though, you could switch over to something like Carefree Melody. There's a lot of room to play around here, and so you can kind of pick and choose whatever works best for you. For our case though, I want to showcase Grubberfly. We're going to throw those on, and then Unbreakable Strength actually increases the damage of the Grubberfly projectile, so we're going to throw that on too. So for this, we obviously want to keep our soul up, but getting hit isn't so bad because that gives us an excuse to heal and throw at our Spore Cloud. you wanted to make room for something like Quick Slash to allow you to really throw out these beams, that's definitely an option. It's important to find these opportunities to heal, and then we can kind of play it safe for a while if we want to. Just get the like ranged hits. And you can heal too, even if you have full health, and you can send out that Spore Cloud again. I believe the cooldown for it resets when you get hit or once it disappears. You see how easy it is with Quick Focus to really heal up your health very quickly? Even if I purposely get hit, I can throw it up like while he's doing that attack. And he just never stops getting hit by our Spore Cloud, basically. Like, I can heal so quickly and I get so much soul from Grubber Song that I really don't care about getting hit at all. She hasn't even been near us yet, and we've already been able to stun her once. There it goes again, and then we can throw this up. Yeah, get in there, girl. You can, of course, get a little closer to get a little bit more damage, since I believe Unbreakable Strength and Grubberfly does about 75% damage of your normal nail strikes. It's so easy to attack guys like this with Grubberfly on. We can throw out a spell or two too if we want, when we have a lot of soul built up. It's also worth noting we don't actually build soul when we hit with the Grubberfly, so we do typically have to get in, but the bonus of Grub Song is that we should basically always have enough soul to heal once. The great thing about this build is that since our focus is healing, we never end up being too low on health. Quick Focus makes healing easy, and then our damage comes out because of it. But again, there's a ton of flex room in this one, so you can really play around and find out what works for you best. Maybe you like focusing on the Spore Shroom, so you want to make room for Deep Focus and Defender's Crest. Or maybe you want to use spells more and you fit in Shaman Stone or even maybe Spell Twister in there somewhere to keep your usage of soul low. Alright, our next fantasy class is the Rogue. So the idea here is a build based around movement. So our core charms are going to be Dash Master, Sprint Master, and of course, Sharp Shadow. So these three charms work together really nicely. Sharp Shadow increases our dash distance whenever we have Shade Dash up. And Dash Master actually increases the damage that Sharp Shadow does to, I think, about 1.25 times regular nail damage. I also think that Quick Slash fits in really well with this build, both for soul generation, but also just the fact that we're trying to be speedy and Quick Slash speeds up our nail strikes, I think works really well. Then we have kind of our flex spot with these last three charm notches, and basically you had to decide if you want to do a nail offensive build with Unbreakable Strength, or you can go with a spell-based build with Shaman Stone. But if you're looking for a little more defense, then you can throw on Quick Focus as well. For our purposes, I'm going to put on Unbreakable Strength, just because it works well with Quick Slash. So with our things kind of synergize well together across the board. This build also kind of ends up being a defensive build, since we have such good range of movement. It's really easy to dodge attacks just with Sprint Master. And then even wide enemies like the False Knight can be easily dashed through with Shadow Dash, and then he's also taking damage at the same time, so we're kind of never losing momentum. And I'll say it again, Quick Slash is just such a strong charm. It ends fights very quickly. If your natural reaction to dodge things is to use the dash, then I think this build has a lot of potential. Now, Gorb is the kind of enemy that this build loses some strength against. We can't really use Shadow Dash against him. We can only hit him with these pot shots. Sprint Master is the one that shines most here because it's so easy to dodge his projectiles. I think Sprint Master is a really underrated charm. It lets us very easily dodge projectiles while saving things like our Shadow Dash for protection when we need it. There's nothing worse than getting caught in the middle of something and you've used your Shadow Dash already and you get hit. I wanted to pick out a boss that really lets this build shine. The Trader Lord's attacks are easily dodged with the use of Shade Dash. Since we never have to stop dealing damage thanks to that, we can make this fight go very quickly. The strength of this rogue build is really in its movement, where you can easily dodge and get to enemies to either deal damage or to avoid damage. Thanks to Sharp Shadow turning our defense into damage, we never lose momentum, and you can really get into a rhythm of attacking and dashing that feels very comfortable. And it helps that the core of this build is three of my favorite boons in the game. Next, we've got our tank build, or maybe like Barbarian, or any kind of heavy damage soaker like that. Now, this tank build is different than the healer because we're less focused on healing and more just being able to take damage and still deal quite a bit of damage out. For the core of this build, I like Unbreakable Heart, Unbreakable Strength, and Carefree Melody. This will let us shrug off hits and keep our masks pretty maxed out. Now, our flex spot is this 3 last notches, and there's quite a few different things we could put here. If you need some range, you could do Mark of Pride. I think Quick Slash is also a great charm to use anytime that you're using the nail a lot. Weaker against some of those flying enemies, but in most situations, it's extremely powerful. If you want even more defense, you could put on something like Quick Focus, or if you're looking for something a little bit more cute, you could put on Thorns of Agony along with Stalwart Shell. Stalwart Shell will make it so that when we get hit, we're invulnerable for longer, and this pairs nicely with Carefree Melody, because even when the melody goes off, we still get that invulnerability. And on top of that, it makes Thorns of Agony actually react faster, and Thorns of Agony also still goes off when Carefree Melody triggers. We're going to take this into a trial and see how it does. So in this build, we really don't care about getting hit. We're just going to run into guys, basically. If they hit us, like, they also die. We can heal up in these kind of in-between moments, but it really doesn't matter that much. I'd say I wouldn't really be concerned about my health for real until we're about, like, halfway down. Normally the problem with Thorns of Agony is that it's kind of too slow, and it really fucks you up with the animation, but with Stalwart Shell, it actually becomes kind of useful. Especially with our nail damage maxed out right now. We can still throw in the odd spell if we've got the soul for it. I'm not locked out from using that kind of thing. Basically in all these builds, we're always going to have either Unbreakable Strength or Shaman Stone to keep our damage up. But like, ooh, there, we got the use of Carefree Melody, but we still got the Thorns of Agony to deal a ton of damage to that Great Hopper. He went down really fast. And we can heal that one mask. Like, again, we're not really in danger, even though we're kind of playing kind of gung-ho. This build is not going to be particularly good against maybe some flying enemies and basically anybody that teleports around a lot, like Grim. But especially in a trial like this, these enemies we're pretty good against all these enemies. We don't have much soul generation with this build, so we do have to be a little careful with that. You don't want to, like, actually use a couple spells and then realize that you're totally out of soul when you actually do need to heal. It's important to keep that in mind. These guys usually are much better to hit with your spells, but I want to build up a little bit of soul that I don't have to worry about it when we fight the Oblobbles at the end here. Like we said, we can still throw our spells out, but I'm going to make sure that I have a little bit of soul. There, that guy went down pretty easy when we got Carefree Melody to go off. Still do a lot of damage with our thorns here. Now that we're close to the end, yeah, I can just run into him, basically. This build is a lot of fun. It's not quite as strong or as versatile as something like the Fighter, but if you're the kind of player that plays aggressively, this can actually benefit you a lot. I just might not recommend it for Radiant fights in God Home. Next, we move on to the Spellsword. Now, this is a hybrid build. There's not really any room for flex spots since we're really going to need all the charms that we're about to put on. So we start with Unbreakable Strength and Shaman Stone as our main sources of damage. Then Spell Twister and Quick Slash finish it off. Now this maxes out the amount of spells we can do with Spell Twister, and our damage is great on all fronts thanks to Unbreakable Strength and Shaman Stone. Then Quick Slash doubles as our nail damage, but also as one of the better soul generators in the game. I actually think it often outclasses Soul Eater against enemies where you can get a lot of hits in. Soul Eaters may be better against things like Soul Tyrant, since he's hard to hit with the nail a lot, but generally Quick Slash is going to be our go-to for any kind of soul generation when we're using the nail a lot. You can see there's also no room for any defensive charms, so if you're someone that gets hit a lot, it might not be the ideal build. But if you get the balls to pull it off, this can do a lot of damage real fast against basically every boss in the game. You can see here, against an enemy like this, Quick Slash isn't getting the most, but once we build up that soul, we can make up for our bad nail damage against this fight with things like Howling Shriek. This build, offense is our best defense. We want to generate as much soul as we can with Quick Slash and damage, and then throw out a whole bunch of spells. You may find this with this build, you end up taking a lot more hits because we're really focused on offense instead of defense, and you just want to get in as much damage as possible, as quickly as possible. But you can find lots of opportunities to get the most out of your spells, and then build up soul in the meantime. Fluke Marm is a great example of how our hybrid damage can really shine. We can spend the first bit of the fight building up our soul, and then once we have enough, we can just unleash Howling Shrieks on it. The fight's over in like 10 seconds flat. Since this is a mostly defense-focused build, we're not really worried about dodging attacks so much. We just want to get in as much damage as we possibly can. We'll find some small opportunities to heal when it makes sense. Like when we stun an enemy like that, and then we get in and deal some more damage. Always bow to your master. So with this build, we're building around offense instead of defense. We can end the fights as quickly as possible by dishing out as much damage as possible, and we don't even have to worry about getting hit. I tend to start fights out with the nail mostly and build up a bunch of soul, and then unleash an array of spells. Next we have another two-part build like the healer was the paladin and the cleric. This time we're kind of a ranger or a warlock. This build is built around Weaver Song. To go along with that, we're going to put on Sprint Master and Grub Song. Sprint Master increases the speed in which our weavers move, and Grub Song makes them generate soul. Now on the Warlock side, this will look kind of like an alternate of the Wizard, where we throw on Shaman Stone, Spell Twister, and maybe Soul Catcher to finish it off. But there's also some flex space here. You could take that off and put on something like Glowing Womb for more buddies, or Grimchild, as well as Unbreakable Heart if you just want some defense. Our alternative here is the Ranger. Instead of the spell-based charms, we're going to throw on Unbreakable Strength, Quick Slash, and probably finish it off here with Nailmaster's Glory. This gives us that kind of versatility with the Nailmaster's Glory, and we got lots of soul generation with Quick Slash to throw in some weaker spells, or so that we can make sure we're healing all the time, and on Unbreakable Strength, of course, just our best nail-based damage. You could make room for Quick Focus if you wanted to be a little bit more defensive, or even Mark of Pride if you just want a little bit of reach. For our purposes, we're going to take that off and put Quick Slash back on, just because I think it's really strong. I don't know what it is about these weavers, but I fucking love them. As you can see, our soul builds up so fast. This is even probably better for the Warlock build, but I wanted to give the nail damage a bit of a chance. The strength of this build here is that we can kind of go hybrid a little bit, and we always have soul for healing and stuff thanks to the weavers generating it, even if we're not directly attacking anyone. These fucking aspids will always be our greatest enemy. Ugh. Disgusting. We could have switched out Nailmaster's Glory for Steady Body as well if we wanted to. I think Steady Body works really well with Quick Slash. But I like some versatility too. Looks like our weavers have lost their minds down there. They don't know how to get back up. We can just let the weavers do some work if we need some soul, if we were in a tight spot. We'll kill these guys eventually. You know, probably. I think in this particular run, we would have been better to go with the more Warlocky build, just because spells seem to work better against a lot of these guys. But even without Shaman Stone, you can see how fast I went down. We never had to worry about our soul being low thanks to these guys. I fucking love these weavers. I don't know what it is. They're hilarious. Look at them. I think this is just another kind of fun build where we can use a few of the charms that you wouldn't normally, like Weaver Song. You can see that they were a little bit less good against the flying enemies when we were up on those platforms, so that's something to keep in mind when you're taking it. Try to think about where you're going to end up and what bosses you're fighting. Anything on the ground is going to be a lot more effective, but that's kind of the flip on a lot of these builds. The more something flies and the less opportunity you have to hit it with the nail, you go with more of a spell build, and vice versa. If it's on the ground and you can hit it a lot with something like Quick Slash and Unbreakable Strength, that's usually the strongest option. I thought I'd end by showing my personal build when I'm traveling around Hallownest. This kind of starts out as the rogue build. I just love the movement of Dash Master and Sprint Master, and being able to just kill things on the fly with Sharp Shadow. And I don't know, I have a weird soft spot in my heart for Weaver Song. I just really like those skittering little boys. Then Grub Song makes sure that I can kind of always heal if I accidentally get hit, and it also makes it so that the Weavers collect soul for me. Then Spell Twister just lets me quickly finish off enemies, even if I only have a small amount of soul built up. And then I have to throw in the best charm in the game, Wayward Compass, of course. I'll change this to something akin to some of the other builds when I'm against an actual hard boss, usually something along the lines of the Spellsword build, but certain bosses require, certain small differences. And I don't know, Weaver Song is just kind of my pet charm of choice. That's the end of our list of fantasy charm builds. If you try any of these, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Or if you think there's a trope I missed, or some charm that you think could fit well into something, I'd love to hear that too. I think some of the less common charms like Grubberfly's Elegy, Carefree Melody, Weaver's Song, and Sports Room are all a lot of fun to play around with. If you want more fun gaming content, don't forget to subscribe. And if you didn't like this video, leave me a meaty dislike. I'd even love to hear whatever your personal charm build is, even if it's not in any sort of particular trope. I'll see you exploring Hallownest. This is where Quick Flash really comes in handy, because we can just like wail on this guy when he's... oh no, he's dead.